Thank you, Prime Minister, for that very broad overview and oversight of the what I would consider situational analysis of what we have here today. This evening I will just focus on a couple of main areas so that we can have some specifics on what I consider to be a critical area in tourism. I will first of all outline the situation analysis as it pertains to our source markets, both of the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the Caribbean. As it stands today, the United States amounts to and accounts to 70% of our visitors into the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. As you would be well aware, the epicenter of the COVID-19 rests in Florida, which is really our hub into the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And clearly, Florida now represents the epicenter for the virus in the United States. In Canada, Canada amounts for 10% of our source market, and I can say to you that they are managing their COVID-19 cases, and Canada has really at this moment flattened the curve. In the United Kingdom, which is 15% of our source market at the moment, they also have managed their COVID-19 cases to have at this moment to flatten their curve. The Caribbean, with the exception of Dutch and French territories, have no major concern. Of course, our concern into the Dutch and French Caribbean is that for them, that there are no domestic travelers. And so if you arrive out of the Dutch and the French mother countries, you have no issues there in terms of testing, and that's a concern for us. But in terms of the English-speaking Caribbean, at the moment, I would venture to say we are in a pretty good position. In terms of St. Kitts and Nevis and in terms of our marketing, we have been doing extensive work in our source markets to prepare our stakeholders for our phased reopening. I must stress at the moment that in terms of reopening our borders, that is really a very fluid situation. And so we can't, I believe, and I will have to let Mr. Abdias say otherwise, but I believe at this moment we can't really say or give a date in terms of our opening because of the fluid nature of the virus at the moment. Safe to say that we are making sure that we prepare locally for when the time comes in terms of opening our borders. In terms of the United States, we have been doing some relevant and I would consider inspirational posts, both on Instagram Live, to make sure that the marketing aspect is kept alive. The Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Raquel Brown, has been doing such. Mr. Widdowson from Caribel Batik. We have Roger Brisbane from Spice Mill. The last installment being somewhere in the region of August the 13th, 2020. Social media posts have been well on the way, really indicating to those overseas about the warmth and serenity of St. Kitts and Nevis, and to awake the senses of persons who may want to travel when we I would say, get out of this critical period of the COVID-19. When we look at our Canadian market, our team is currently working with golf clubs to promote the destination. And that again is somewhat dependent on what really happens over the next few weeks in terms of the opening of our borders. In terms of the UK, we've been having Zoom meetings, hosting some happy hours virtually, of course. Our St. Kitts team in the UK is promoting the destination to travel agents and to make sure that when the borders open, that we would be ready. In the Caribbean, currently we are working on a collaborative video with the Nevis Tourism Authority, which will be used to promote intra-regional travel. And of course, I believe that over the discussions this evening, would recognize, Mr. Prime Minister, that it's very difficult just to open up to the international travel just like that. I think we have to operate on a phased approach. I believe, Mr. Prime Minister, we need to open up locally, first of all, fully. Then we go to the regional marketplace and then the international marketplace. And so I think it has to be a phased approach. I believe persons and citizens in St. Kitts and Nevis will come to understand at the moment that we're in a really critical space. And so it's not business as usual. And we have to appreciate that things are going to take time. The safety and the health of our citizens come first, and everything thereafter. We also appreciate that the economic health of our citizens is as important as the health and safety of our citizens. And that is why we are very open and transparent in terms of the dialogue that we have on an ongoing basis, because the decisions we make are not the decisions of the cabinet, are not the decisions of the health experts, but really at the end of the day are the decisions of each and every citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis who shares a part with the concerns of the COVID-19 virus. In terms of our human capital and physical product development, we have had meetings with the stakeholder groups such as the bars and the restaurants in St. Kitts, the water sports and the catamaran operators, the hoteliers, the GT operators. That is set for Thursday, the 23rd of July. And we are making sure that every segment of the stakeholder industry in tourism is connected, and we have discussed the issues with them. We are in the process of the establishment of protocols from the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Health, and NIOC, working on protocols for the various businesses and the operators in the tourism sector, which is very, very important. In fact, even as this morning we met with the airlines and the airport to determine what protocols we are going to have when we reopen the airport, which is very significant, because you must appreciate also that this is a serious time. We have seen Bahamas, for example, who have opened up their airports and I think have shut down their operations at the moment because they have had a spike in the number of COVID cases. We have seen Antigua, who have opened up their borders and have seen increase in their numbers. And so we want to make sure that we do the right thing in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so at the end of the day, when we open up with a consensus by the majority of persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, and that we open up in a phased manner, and in a manner that we can control this virus, because we are appreciative that in St. Kitts and Nevis, at the moment, we have 2 live cases, I think it is. We had 0 cases a few weeks ago, and I believe this is very significant for us. And at this juncture, I want to pause to commend the health experts, the NEOC, for the tremendous work and effort being put in by them, going beyond the call of duty. I'm sure 25 hours a day sometimes, I imagine. And not only them, because we have to also commend the security forces who have done a marvelous job. And I believe that even now, as I lie on the strip on weekends and when the police come and shut us down at 11 o'clock, people are understanding of the nature of the issue that we have at hand and are respectful in that regard. We have had to embark on a number of training exercises, and in fact we start training this Wednesday again with the bars and the restaurants in St. Kitts to prepare our stakeholders to provide a service that is really different in this environment of the COVID-19. And all businesses and operators working in the sector will be required to attend training. And I want to pause at this moment to say that the businesses, the restaurants, or the bars who do not avail themselves of the training facilities in conjunction with NEOC and the tourism stakeholders will not be allowed to open. It's just as very simple as that. Because after the training exercises, you're going to get a certification, and the bars and the restaurants that don't have those certifications will not be allowed to open. It is very, very simple, because we have to protect the health and the well-being of our citizens. That begins on Wednesday the 22nd and continues until August the 27th, 2020. Week 1 runs from the 22nd to the 24th of July, which would be the bars and the restaurants. Week 2 from the 27th to the 31st of July, which will be the taxi and tour bus operators and accommodations. We will introduce a travel approved seal, and really the objective is to identify businesses and operators that meet the minimum health standards and safety protocols. We need to establish a minimum standard, improve the visitor confidence, and that we can use as a marketing tool and can be leveraged in the marketplace as a value-added item, improving the destination marketability. Of course, you've seen our recent product enhancements in the Black Rocks, in the new viewing platform, and Prime Minister, I want to thank you for coming out, I think it was last week, in that magnificent ribbon cutting ceremony that we've had, and which would really have been making some waves throughout not only St. Kitts but regionally and internationally. You've seen the ongoing refurbishment of the strip, our installation of restrooms and lighting at the Cockleshell Beach, and right now our ongoing work at the St. Kitts Eco Park. All of those are issues and product enhancements that we are getting ready to open St. Kitts and Nevis. As to when it will be open, that is up for discussion, not only this evening, but an ongoing discussion to make sure that we have the buy-in of the community in terms of our opening up. Just a little update on the St. Kitts, on SCASPA. Our airport and seaport works within the Civil Aviation and the National Aviation Committee, NEOC, and the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Tourism, and SKTA. We are moving to identify the health and safety protocols and additional standards of operation relevant to the COVID-19 era. You would appreciate that you're going to see some changes at the RLB International Airport as we move towards identifying the protocols that are necessary to make sure that our health and safety of our citizens and our visitors is paramount. And Mr. Prime Minister, with those few words, I will pass it over to the chair lady.